today I want to point out the fact that you are a software engineer and you work for an electric company. Well, not electric company. That's dumb.
Yeah, I can jump in. Yeah, so I'm a software engineer and I do work for a EV charging network in Australia.
Yes, and on I am a graphic designer that I work in marketing and obviously graphic design. And I think for today's news, those two skills are going to be kind of relevant. And you probably still haven't heard of this, but you will see why in a second. So, I mean, that's all the jargon out of the way. Just subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. And let's jump right into it because there's so much stuff that came in the last, few days. The big news is the shareholder meeting. The shareholder meeting, a lot of things got unearthed and discovered, and so let's jump right into it. There's a couple of things that we'll have a chat about before we get into that. But anyway, long story short, let's start.
There's this public image of Toyota in the news media where we're talking about hydrogen and how awesome they're like the leaders in new fuel technology and all this sort of stuff. Where at the same time, they're spending billions of dollars, or I don't know how much exactly, but they're spending large amounts of money to try to stop EVs, while also trying to represent themselves as being a really green company. So, but the funny thing is, under the hood, anyway, most, like some hydrogen cars do have hydrogen combustion, sure, but most hydrogen cars are hydrogen fuel cell, which means that they are effectively electric cars with a generator on board.
Yes.
So it's still an EV, really. I guess maybe coming back to the article a bit, the interesting bit about this article is that 3 massive asset managers, so they are shareholders that hold $400 million in Toyota stock, called a meeting with Toyota and is like, what's going on? You're missing out on profits on EV sales. You're not doing what's in the interest of shareholders now. So it's not just about Toyota making poor decisions for the climate change. They're also making poor decisions for shareholders because EVs are now the leading technology that other car companies have been investing in for a long time. And so they're now, instead of being the leaders in hybrid like they were, they're now laggards in EV. And you can see that with their latest model, the BZ4, whatever, I don't know, car is really inefficient compared to the other cars on the market. So it's not looking good for them right now. And I think it's funny that the shareholders are calling them on it.
Moving on. So, yes, I completely agree with you on that one. How much, and this is a whole conversation, again, more from a marketing side, but at a certain point, the ego needs to stop, the ego of a company or the hubris of a company needs to stop to actually let a sales in and just adapt the new technology. And I think that's exactly what's happening with Toyota. They're just being, a stubborn child, like, no, we got the answer. No, don't tell me anything about EVs. We got the answer. And in the meantime, nothing is really happening. But also, they are one of the top manufacturers of hybrid cars. Toyota are incredibly famous for their hybrid technology, and it's pretty good in general, especially in Australia. They sell so many hybrid cars. It's not even funny.
Yeah, that's what's so disappointing. It's so disappointing that they didn't keep iterating on it and improving it and making it better and making better and better like electric motors, because they have electric motor for their hybrid. So why not keep going?
Well, they do have an electric car coming later this year.
But if you compare it to all of the other cars on the market, it's very disappointing in terms of its range and its efficiency.
Especially when Toyota is the number one car seller in Australia at the point of this. It's number one, and they make darn good cars, so it's double disappointing. If this one was, I don't know, which one is a bad car manufacturer? I don't want to point any fingers, but there's some bad ones.
Yeah. They had an opportunity and they've really missed it.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Tesla to begin running car ads for the first time. That one is right up my square. So.
Oh, wow.
Did you hear about this?
No, I haven't heard about this one.
Okay, so this one is from the shareholder meeting. This is very, very new, so I'm not surprised because it was literally, I think, something that came out yesterday. So here's the deal. It's not a big one. They're saying that they may start looking into it. This was something that was said in the shareholder meeting. And what Elon Musk essentially said is, we are ready to have a look at it and maybe start investing a little bit on it. Now, the way that the
Mm.
market reacted is incredibly interesting because the Tesla stock up, the Tesla stock raised 1.6% after hours of trading, and the shareholders went crazy, like, woo, yes, finally. I don't know if that's the right reaction. Look, I am in marketing,
No.
and
It's kind of the opposite, isn't it? Right? Because if they're doing this, they're recognizing that they need to do it where they haven't had to do it before, right?
well, that is part of it, but that is not the big concern that I would have. The main concern that I would have is that now they are playing the game, and it's not so much about, what you're saying, but the fact that once you start investing in marketing, that becomes part of your budget. And then all of a sudden, that starts creeping in the way that you allocate your budget. So big companies have to consider this. It's very famous, for example, in Hollywood, to give a completely different example, that when they make a movie and then they have to put the publicity budget is almost as big as the budget for making the actual movie. And Ford and you name them, whichever one, Toyota, and all of them spent literally billions of dollars a year in advertising, in PR, and in all of this crap. And Tesla didn't need to do that, and that was a good thing, which meant that they didn't have a budget allocated that would take away from actually what they were doing, which was building cars. Opening that door would, yes, maybe it will improve their sales worldwide at a certain point, but also it would open a door from a massive money funnel that a lot of big car manufacturers are propense to, and massively as well. Like, it is a big problem with big car manufacturers because they spend so much money in advertising, and Tesla didn't need to do it, and that was a good thing. And now, not only the fact that they need to do it, as you will put it, but the fact that if they start doing it, this may be a very slippery slope when they later on would end up spending a massive part of the budget again in advertising. And I wouldn't like to see that, to be honest, because that's not what they do. They're not an advertising company. They are a car building company. And I've said that from every single car manufacturer that that spends that amount of money in that.
Well, I guess this is a massive topic because I feel like a lot of people have talked about this, the fact that Tesla don't advertise, and that's such a great thing because it's all about word of mouth, and their product is so far ahead of everyone else that's why they don't need to, and they're not needing to do that. So to me, them announcing this, suggests they have potentially a bit of a demand problem right now, as they don't, with the financial kind of situation around the world, is that people are considering, do they need to buy a car, an expensive car, and so people are maybe holding off, so they may not be selling as much. And they're going, oh, how do we do it? We need to do advertising to compete with traditional car makers. And then the other thing is, I think the flip side is that because they have never spent money on advertising with large sort of media agencies have given them a really hard time.
But that is not a bad thing. Media agencies are not a good thing in the world in general. I'm sorry, but they are not.
Yeah. It's a bit of a racket, right? If you have to spend money to advertise with a news agency in order for them to give you good coverage and good press, then that's a racket, isn't it?
Well, here's the other bit, and I've highlighted this. It says, in the past, Musk has said that Tesla didn't need to advertise as demand always exceeded supply, and that is the other side of the coin, because they have been building factories for the last 5 years. And they have come up with all of these new. They have Shanghai, they have Texas, they have Germany, and they are even trying to build one in Canada and Mexico now. And they're doing all of these things. So obviously, the output of cars have raised considerably over the last year or so. Like, if you see the window, the waiting period for a Tesla car in 2021 was massive. And now they're ramping up production, as they should. So I'm wondering if at this point it's just a simple fact of, you know what, we have finally have more cars than the ones that we have on waiting list. And that is reflecting in the price cuts that we've seen here in Australia, which was, part of the news. But it's a little bit of old news, so I'm just going to go through it really, really quickly because I think last week after we did the podcast, I think on Friday, they announced the price cut for certain cars in Australia that has had some changes on it, and I don't have the latest information to be honest, but that is hand in hand with this. If they are lowering the price and they are spending in publicities, because at this point, chances are they have more offer than demand, and that is, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's interesting anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's interesting. If the stocks are going up based on just this particular news, that's a concern because it's showing that they have more demand. They have more supply than they have demand, which is not great. But then they have a lot more factories and they're ramping up very quickly. So at the same time, it's good that their production is going so well. So it's like it's all over the place. There's
Do you
different
think
things here.
we're going to start seeing way more Teslas around? Like when I got my Tesla, I got it 1 year ago in March. And literally, I would say hello to every single Tesla that would drive around because it was so
Yeah.
rare. My kids would go say, Tesla, Tesla, look, there's a Tesla. And now, they are not uncommon. I wouldn't say they are in places, which I'm glad, by the way. I don't need to feel special about the car that I drive. So do you think this means that we're going to start seeing way more Teslas on the road here in Australia?
Well, I think we already are. Like the amount of Teslas that were delivered this year, I think are already more than any other, like all of the deliveries of Teslas combined for any previous years. I'd have to double check that. Don't fact check me on that. It may not be correct, but the amount of ships that have been coming in and the amount of Teslas that have come in this year and last year are huge compared to what they were previously. That's correct.
That is
So,
absolutely right. Yes, and the waiting
um,
periods have diminished quite a lot. Like it used to be a year and
yeah.
a bit, and now it's
And
months
if you
now.
want to order a RAV4, it's like a 2-year wait. So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
just to compare.
no. This is a really good point because that's again something that happened to me. I was not going to buy a Tesla. I wanted to buy a Kluger, a hybrid Kluger. And by the way, I know the director of one of the biggest Toyota dealers here in South Australia, if not the biggest. I don't know if it's one of the biggest or the biggest. Doesn't matter. He's a personal friend of mine. And I went, he showed me what he got. He said, I can give you that one, which was white, and it was not what I needed. It's like, if you want this one, I could probably jump, write you down, and maybe you can jump the queue in here and there. If you order this, I can tell you which one to order. I cannot put you in front of anyone, but if you order these things, I know that you will get it faster. So, oh, that's great. That was in March 2022. And I said, okay, great. When can I expect it? I said, oh, September 2022. And I was like, that's way too long. And I saw him in a party a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him, and I said, "Well, mate, I'm very glad you didn't." As a worker from Toyota, and he said, "I'm glad you didn't because you would still be waiting for it." So there you go.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's definitely a factor.
moving on. Tesla cancels Model S and Model X deliveries in Australia and other RHD markets. That's your article. Tell me about it because that's exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah, I think this is for me. This is kind of disappointing. I think I guess you could. What this means is, you can no longer order a Model S or a Model X in Australia, which is if it's kind of sad. And also, anyone that already had an order for the new Model S and the Model X received a refund for it, and were not and didn't receive their car. I think this is a huge miss on Tesla. Because anybody I think that is going to order a Model S or a Model X is going to be a huge advocate for the Tesla brand, is probably going to sell more Teslas because they have the nice fancy car with the fancy doors, or the really fast Model S with the screens and stuff. And so it costs them a lot of extra money maybe to make them work in right-hand drive and to ship them from their factory in America. But I just think this is a massive miss, and that they really have stuffed up here. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the fact that it's a massive miss, I think we can agree on, but I'm way more interested in why. Because
Well,
to hold on,
it,
to make this
yeah.
decision, something incredibly big pushed them to make it. It's not something that they would make, lightly. So what do you think?
Well, there's a few different factors. So all the Model 3 and Model Y cars in Australia are manufactured in China,
Hmm.
and are then shipped here. But Model S and Model X are actually come from Fremont. The Fremont is the only factory, which is in the US, that manufactures Model S and X. And they have to, in order um, to manufacture these, they have to change. They have to change the factory over to sort of do a limited run of right-hand drive cars and to produce them and then sell them. And then the problem is that the volume is quite low. So there's not a huge volume of people in Australia buying them because they're $180,000 plus. So that's kind of a problem. So both in the all right-hand drive markets, so it's Australia, the
Point on that.
UK.
That's what I was going to
Yeah.
say. Point on that. But then you have India, UK, Japan, some Southeast Asian countries, and Australia that actually drive on the right hand, and they haven't delivered a Model S, I think, in 3 years or 2 years or something like that.
Yep. So
So
they're not getting it anymore now.
I know, I understand, but that seems like a really mute point. At this point, they probably would have had a massive backlog in all of those countries that you're mentioning. So just
Exactly.
the UK and Japan, that's a big market. I'm not even saying Australia, which is probably just as big. So making that call seems, I don't know, wouldn't. And again, this
Yeah.
is
I
without the
think it's crazy.
information, but wouldn't it make sense to actually Shanghai, which with Texas is the newest one and the most technology advanced plants, would it make sense to try to make a run in those? Or I don't know. It really does bother me that someone would take a hit that is a hit on the chin that would make them lose face that much, because this is not a small one, especially not with people that are actually buying cars, like you said, $100,000 plus.
Yeah, yeah, it's just I think the people that have that money and are willing to spend it and are excited about Tesla as a brand and want to buy one of these cars are going to be massive advocates for Tesla. But also now they're going to be going, oh, okay, well, I was going to buy a $200,000 EV. They're not in the market for a 3 or a Y. They're not going to swap their order to that.
No, and they're
Although they
probably
do get a $3,000 credit to buy that as part of this refund. But I think they're going to consider other luxury car brands that are in that same price range, like the Mercedes
mm-hmm,
EQS or EQC or whatever the
mm-hmm.
similarly priced Mercedes are, or the BMWs, or the other high priced electric cars.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If a company does that to you and you've been waiting 2 years to receive your car, which is a huge amount of time to wait for a car, especially if you do need the car for whatever reason, a Model X, you're waiting and you're making life decisions on you waiting for that car, and they keep moving the post every single time and said, oh, well, it's going to come this year, it's going to come in a few months. When I have my car, I'll make this trip. Or, I'm going to hold on in buying that SUV for my 5, 6, 7-year-old kids, and, so taking them to soccer practice. A car is a massive asset in someone's life, and waiting for that long would actually piss people off, and they probably, if it was me, I wouldn't buy a Tesla anymore. Like, for me, that would be, if I've been
Yeah,
waiting for 2.5 years and they said, by the way, no, you cannot have it, I was like, F off, I'm not buying a Tesla. So that's what I'm
that's the thing.
saying.
So they've lost a sale, which maybe they were making a loss on it, or maybe it was costing them too much to redesign the car to allow for right-hand drive. I'm sure there's a bunch of other reasons why,
Mm,
but they've also lost all the potential sales that could have happened from that person referring and
correct.
saying, "Oh, look at my fancy car, this amazing Tesla," and they're like, "Oh, well, I can't afford it," but oh, okay, but you can look at the Model 3, Model Y. Yeah, that's all gone, and I think a lot of the early
Doctors.
Tesla owners were huge for that.
Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely.
if these people are did have these orders, but I have a strong suspicion that they would have been.
Well, I was charging in a supercharger the other day, and I met a guy with a Model X,
Yeah.
and he was waiting for the Model Y and blah 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 blah. He told me the whole story, and he said I bought a Model X because there was the only Tesla, and he had a Model X and he was loving it. He was living his best life with his Model X. Like it was way more than I should have spent. It was a very expensive car, but I love it. I love it every day. I've had it at that point. I think he has had it for 4 years. Then I was
Mm.
like, I would recommend it, even if it's too expensive, just go and buy the Model X. He was incredibly happy with his purchase. And that would have been the opportunity they could have had, and they missed out. And I think there's not much to say. Just the fact that
Yeah.
there's got to be something we're missing, because I don't think this is a decision they would have taken lightly. It seems like
No.
there's something bigger there, which I don't know. Maybe it's just they're trying to push Model Y. There's another news that is coming that is very interesting, that maybe is a reason why. Maybe they just, Cybertruck or whatever. But so we'll see in a second. I think we
Yeah, the other worry a lot of people have is the Cybertruck then going to come to Australia?
well,
Because that could not happen either.
yeah, that not only the Cybertruck. What about the Roadster? What about all the broken promises? And this is a very Tesla heavy. The other one was more MG. This one is a very Tesla heavy podcast. But the shareholder meeting was just yesterday.
Yeah.
But so after this has happened, what about the Roadster? What about the people that paid deposits? What about the people? Remember that at some point YouTubers were giving like this code, and you could go and pre-order a Tesla, and they would get like a kickback. And there was people that had a free Roadster, 2 free Roadsters at that
Yeah.
point. And there's people that actually paid up front the first 30 Roadsters in an event, and they paid for them. It was $100-something thousand American, and they've been sitting on that order for what, 5 to 6 years. So that is a possibility, just not shipping the cars. What about those people? Are they going to return the $100,000 regardless of inflation and all of the other crap? Because one thing is to take, back a deposit of $600 or $3,000. What about $100,000 that you could have, had in your pocket?
Invest it. Yeah.
Buy a property, make them work, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, bada bing, bada boom, here's your $100,000 back. Sorry, we're not doing the Roadster. Because that is the door they're opening. It's not small. Anyway, missed opportunity
Yeah.
for sure.
Definitely.
Here you go. That's the one.
Okay.
Tesla teases upcoming smaller, cheaper electric car.
Yeah. We've been hearing about this for a long time. A lot of people talk about this as the Model 2. So
Yes.
Model 3, Model 2.
Well,
but
they tinkered with a few different names. I think Model 2 is the one that they were going for, isn't it?
yeah.
They officially revealed this, which looks very similar to your car, if I'm not mistaken, Kieran.
Well, what about your car though?
Well, no, but it's more SUV shaped. This one, isn't it? It looks a little
SUV.
bit.
So it's more, maybe it's more of a hatchback then, which again I think a lot of people would be excited for, a hatchback Model 3,
Well,
which
a
those
hatchback
pictures-
Model 3 would be fantastic. Because I'll be honest with you, but for those people that don't know, I used to have a Model Y in pre-order. Actually, I lost my deposit because I canceled the order, and instead of that, I kept my Model 3, which I'm very happy with, by the way. I love the Model 3, and just in drive-wise and the way that it looks, I prefer the Model 3, personally. I actually do like how it looks better, but I wouldn't have said no to a hatchback Model 3. It would have been very, very pretty.
But that's interesting there too. You've got the compact, you've got the battery size, 53 kilowatts.
So that is way more up your alley. Tell me about so
42 million sales. That's
those
a lot of
that's
sales.
what they are thinking. So
Yeah, but that's double. They're effectively thinking it's been double Model 3 and Y combined. So they're really expecting this car to be selling a lot, which also hints at it being a lot cheaper.
that is the big one. So it's not only one car. I think they teased 2 cars, but we don't know almost anything about them. So what people are kind of like is that one maybe a small SUV, more like a RAV4, because we know that the RAV4 and all of those, I think they're called crossovers, that are like a cross between a big car and an SUV, similar to the Model Y in a certain level, just a little bit smaller, are taking up the market these days. Like since 2015 that they started coming out, they are selling like hotcakes. Like I used to own one,
Yeah.
the Nissan Qashqai or the Nissan Dualis at that point, and it was one of the best-selling cars in the world because it offered that versatility, is the word. So I wouldn't be surprised for them to actually release something like this. And
Well, there's two other line items in this vehicle breakdown as well. There's the commercial passenger van on line 3, which is something that they've hinted at before but never really talked about. And then they've got a bus as well, which is TBD too. So it's really cool to see those. Like the van is going to have a 100 kilowatt pack size based on this, and then the bus will have a 300 kilowatts. So, yeah, some interesting new car developments from Tesla.
So, and also the cathodes up. So, talk to me about why the vans and the trucks have high nickel and non LFP batteries. Is that something that could come to the other cars at some point? Because they were saying about the ultra fast chargers, and the fact that this could be what they would use for the semi or for the trucks and stuff like that. Why not use high nickel instead of LFPs for regular cars?
I think the high nickel is actually a new thing. The high nickel is a new battery chemistry that's like based on LFP but has high nickel. I haven't done a lot of research on it, so I'm not quite sure what that is. But yeah, I do. Yeah, it looks like that is for the faster charging items. So that's for the van, the trucks, and you can see the difference there between the short range heavy truck and the long range heavy truck. So there's the semi heavy and the semi light. One of them has the LFP, whereas the high nickel. So yeah, as the range goes up,
it's incredibly interesting for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, just speculating, and I think we should speculate about this. What do you think should be the right price for this car?
Oh, it's a hard one. Like in Australian dollars and including on road?
Yeah.
Well, I guess at the moment you can get a Model 3 for it's at 69 before on road. So what's the total price?
67 70? Before on road. 67 before on road. So it's like 70 at the end of the day.
Yeah, about 70. So in Australia, I think you want to start hitting the, like, getting closer and closer to a petrol car price. I think 50 would be is kind of under 50 would be amazing, because that's sort of the sweet spot. If you can get a car under $50,000, a lot of people are going, oh yeah, I can afford that. Whereas as soon as it goes above 50,000, it's too high.
That's still a little bit high, I reckon. I think they gotta crack the under 40 for this to be a massive success. Like if you think that, and I saw this, and I wish I would have it here, but I don't. That something like 75 to 80% of the car sales are. In general, used and new cars are all of them on the 30,000, like 26,000, 25,000, 20,000, because that's the cars that most people drive. And yes, there's lots of new cars that are being sold and that are more than that, but that is the big chunk. That's the main driving force of most vehicle companies. Yeah. Which I know that it's almost impossible for an EV, especially like Tesla, which is more like a luxury car. But I think they should go for that on the 40, to be honest, because remember that's what they teased the price for the Model 3 at the beginning.
I reckon they should. I reckon they should get to that point, but I don't know if that's economical with their like their profit margins and stuff. I don't know. I would love it. Like I'd love it to be 30,000, because then that'd be competing directly with petrol cars. But like with a 53 kilowatt battery pack, what's the range going to be? Is it going to be under 200? Is it going to be like 200 to 300? Yeah, I don't know. Lots of questions about it.
That would be a big problem, because one of the main driving forces of the Model Y is that it's so similar to the driving distance of a regular car. Like, that is probably the first question that everyone asks me when I say that I own a Tesla is, oh, well, how long do you have to charge? I was like, I get around 400 kilometers. I go, oh, that's not bad. That's almost like a normal car. I was like, yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Almost
so
like
if this has a range, $100 kilometer less range, it's going to be limited to cities. You just can't do interstate travel if you don't have that range.
True. Unless you have massive infrastructure that we don't have in Australia yet.
Well, yeah, potentially if you had every single town had a charger, then you could. But again, it would also take you longer, because you need to charge more often. But I don't know. There's just so much we don't know, and when we know more, we can definitely think a bit more about what sort of impact it's going to be.
I think we know what they should be aiming for. Now, the fact that they can get to it or not, that's a completely different one. But I reckon, yes, we should be trying to get well, I don't know. And again, this is just a wish list or a letter to Santa. The fact that I would like it to be even on the $30,000, because if you want to go and buy like a normal car, like your Corollas, your Nissans, your normal ones, just the entry level ones, they are all 26, 24, 22, 28. That's the price of an entry size car. There's on the 20,000 cars even, but I'm not talking about those ones. I'm talking about like regular sedan cars. Like the Corolla, which is the best-selling car in Australia. You're going to be looking at maybe high 20s to high 30s. That is like the sweet spot. If they could break that market, we would be in a completely different world, Kieran. I don't know if they can.
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to be huge if they do that. And that's going to be the thing. I think the huge thing for this is going to be the price. What's the price?
The price and the range.
I think is the second one.
Yes.
But yeah, if I could buy a $30,000 Tesla that has not much range, I would still want to buy it because I could use it in the city, and then it would be a great second car in that situation.
Yes, it would. So the other thing that to mention is the fact that they teased this picture, and what they are saying is what I mentioned is that it looks a lot like a Model Y. So maybe they will reuse the chassis and just change the we don't know. So
like a smaller Model Y,
or even the same chassis, but just change the range and maybe the interiors. And I don't know. There's again speculations because the shape that they showed looks a lot like a Model Y. It may.
There's also speculation. There's that they're also not making in-house seats anymore. There's also a speculation they're removing the stalks on Model 3s with their new refresh. So there's a lot of stuff
they've been removing
happening.
so much.
I think that they're going to do to change to maybe make it cheaper.
Well, they've been removing so much stuff. Like one of the biggest ones is the sensors, which I was the last one to get the remote sensors, but not the LiDAR. And now they're even removing those ones. And then they said they were going to put them back, and they said they're going to remove them again. It's still up in the air because Elon Musk actually truly believes that the camera is the best source, which I think is a little bit of.
Yeah, that's another video, I think, too, or another discussion topic.
Yeah, I know. I don't believe him. I'm gonna say outright, I don't believe that a camera can do everything that a sensor and a LiDAR can do. There's no way. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. Well, just the simplest way to wrap it up is that you can't actually, the camera cannot see over the front of the car.
Yes.
So there is a blind spot for the camera. If there was a camera on the front, maybe, but they don't. They're not going to put an extra camera there because, like, they're trying to save costs. Yeah, I don't know. It's silly.
Anyway, so and again, there's all of these, talking between cars, so you don't need that because you're gonna see what other cars are doing, yada 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 yada. That's up in the future. Right now, I would rather my car have a LiDAR and doesn't have it. I've driven a Model 3 with a LiDAR, and the cars don't pop in and out as much as the one that has the camera, which is mine. And I'll tell you this. For my personal use, I wouldn't buy a Tesla that didn't have the sensors for the parking because I wouldn't be able to park it properly in my garage. I use those ones profusely. So if the Tesla removes those ones, which they are saying they will, I wouldn't buy a Tesla. Period. As easy as that. So they keep.
Oh wow! So that small feature is enough for you to not want to buy one.
Well, I wouldn't be able to park it in my garage. I use it a lot. It would remove a massive chunk of usability from the car, because I would need to be able to know where I'm parking it. Those things and how many centimeters away it is. All of that stuff, it's incredibly important to me, and sometimes I park in the dark. So, I don't know. Elon Musk says that cameras can do all of that. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know. We're sounding a little bit too critical of Tesla. It seems a little... Well, sometimes they deserve it.
I'm just telling it like it is.
Yeah, true. People will get angry at us, maybe. I don't know. But the truth is that
tell us in the comments if you're angry or if you're happy or you have to share the same feelings about it. Like,
true.
We want to know.
And we, by the way, I have 2 Teslas. Kieran has a Tesla. Like, we are not defending anyone's purchase. Like, I would, I would rather these things don't happen. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
Tesla recalls more than 1 million electric cars in China. I love these kind of articles. They are so.
I saw this one.
Yeah, I mean. So, essentially, U.S. electric vehicle giant Tesla has issued the largest recall in its history, recalling more than 1.1 million cars in China due to lack of driver-adjustable regenerative braking settings. So the thing is,
So, was it a software update?
yes, it was. Of course it was, Kieran. Of course it was. So,
The word recall is funny because I think just so many people have this thing of, oh, it's a recall. I'm going to have to take it back to the dealer and they're going to book them in and they're going to have to fix it and it's going to be crap. And then you reply the same thing to a Tesla and it doesn't mean the same thing.
no. But apparently,
Oh,
there's
so
a
no.
legal. It is a legal term that they can use because it is a recall, but it's not. Anyway,
It's a recall.
and it's
but it's
over
not a
something
recall.
incredibly simple, which was, remember that there was a setting about the regenerative braking that you could have it in low and
Yep.
you could have it in high. So I'll read it because it's a small article. It says the recall is also Tesla's largest since the company was founded in 2003, eclipsing the 1.97 million cars recall in September 2022 due to the fault with its soft close power window software. Again, another software recall. Jesus Christ, this and this one is from the Driven.
And it's
by the
funny,
way.
like largest ever. The last one was 1.09 million and this is 1.1 million. So it's the largest ever.
Yeah, I know. So SAMR says the affected vehicles have been recalled because they do not allow the driver to choose the energy regenerative braking strategy. Sorry about, I struggle with the regenerative word, which controls how much braking force the car's electric motor can provide to assist the conventional disc brakes. Fair enough. Fair enough. Like, yes, it is kind of an important thing to have.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm happy with it. I personally will set it to standard and just leave it, and I would never put it on low. But I don't know because I love.
I guess it can be a safety issue if you're used to one way, and then for whatever reason someone messes up with your brakes. It's kind of a big deal. It's not a small thing to be messing around, which is what they did. And now again, I'm going against myself because if you don't have that option at the very beginning, then it doesn't matter. And the fact is that they removed the option. So anyway, these things are weird, and China is interesting. So anyway, let's keep on going. While Tesla drivers were previously allowed to choose their own regenerative braking setting between standard and low, October 2020 over-the-air OTA software update removed the low assistance mode. They don't call it a recall here, by the way. Last month, electric vehicle publication Electrek reported Tesla would reinstate the two-mode regenerative braking system to its car across the globe via an over-the-air software update, which include those impacted by the recall in China. In addition to the regenerative braking system update, Tesla's vehicles will be required to provide a reminder to drivers who depress the accelerator pedal deeply for a long time, which the SAMR believes will reduce the risk of drivers mistaking the throttle for the brake, posing a safety hazard, which is the main thing. According to the SMR, Tesla says it will perform an over-the-air software, here you go, update for the accelerator pedal reminder free of charge, though it's not known whether it will also be applied to Tesla vehicles sold outside of China. I mean, what else? That's it. They are concerned about safety, and this is only for China, but I guess the big take here is how we use the word recall. I think that's the main thing that is acting.
Yeah. And I think maybe over time, as people maybe don't have the same experience of what a recall is, and then it's like, oh, it's just another recall. It just means a software update. But that's a huge differentiator between Tesla and other automakers, is that they do have over-the-air updates. And so
and even
if an EV even if there is a new EV and there's a recall on it, say like a Toyota EV, they're probably going to have to take the Toyota EV into the service center when there's a recall.
Well, another thing that Tesla does very, very well, because I have, and I don't know if you had this recall or not, but I had for both my cars, the recall was a sticker. I think I told you this. Like,
yeah, no, I didn't have this.
So I'll just, I think we talked about it somewhere else, but long story short, I got a message, and I don't know if this was for everyone, by the way. It happened to me with both my Model 3s, and they were both 2022 models. I got an app thingy that said, well, we need to go and see your car. I'm like, what is it about? And it was about removing one sticker and putting a new one, and that was the recall. But even if it was something that needed someone to come and see the car, they had the infrastructure to send someone to my house to take care of it without me having to actually recall the car and send it and bring it back and, losing the car for a couple of weeks while they work on it. And then, so it was just something that, because they do have that infrastructure, someone just came to my house and did it.
So that's the mobile service van,
correct.
Right? That's what they did?
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
and that's really good.
That is really good. But for example, lots of car manufacturers do not have that service. And Tesla is one of the big things about Tesla. They do have that service. Like right now, still under warranty, one of my headlights, the quarter isn't turning on, which is, it's not a big thing, but they're going to come and they're going to do it here. They wanted me to go, and I said, no, I'm sorry. I'm not going to. You're on the other side of town. It was going to take 45 minutes, and then you're going to make me wait for 5 hours. It's just not something I'm comfortable doing. I said, okay, yeah, no problem. We'll just come to your house and do it there. But good. Anyway, moving on. Recalls. This one is Tesla 2023 shareholder meeting. Musk talks Cybertruck and economy and advertising. So we talk on the advertising. Yeah. And a little bit on the economy. The thing here is the Cybertruck. These are the highlights, which is CEO Elon Musk said Tesla will deliver its first Cybertrucks this year and should be able to deliver, check this number, 250.
Really?
That's what they are saying. 250,000.
That's exciting if they do.
To 500,000 a year. A year. Once production has started, not even ramped up. As soon as they start. He said he'll drive a Cybertruck on a daily basis. You think it's true? I
think it could be. That's a year, right? That's not this year. So they're not going to do that many this year because it's already May. But they only have to start. They only have to deliver one by December in order to meet this claim. But there was a previous claim it was going to be last year anyway, so they're already behind the earlier. So I don't know.
Again.
I don't know.
One of the things
that is promising news, though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. One of the things that I deal with a lot, well, not so much here in Australia, but while I was still in Mexico, I used to work a lot with big corporations. And I am fluent in corporation talk. And corporation talk is a different language. And there's lots of promising. And Tesla, there was a time, about 4 to 5 years ago, when Elon Musk spoke, everybody listened. Because he was on point and he would deliver. And now I think that is diminishing, to say that.
Yeah, and maybe distracted by Twitter. But there was also some news recently that there's now a new CEO there. So hopefully his focus is back on
well, but it's not only that. It's the boring company. And then there's also SpaceX. And then there's also, anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah. It would be super exciting to see some Cybertrucks in the US this year.
But that amount, that's not a small amount, Kieran. That is a huge amount.
Yeah, but that's not going to be that. As I said, 250,000 a year. If they started delivering them now, it would be half than that because that's over a whole year.
Can they produce 500,000 Cybertrucks a year in any factory?
Well,
because they are only producing them in Texas. So right now, the only place.
Texas.
So do you think that Texas can get 500,000 Cybertrucks a year? Is that a real number?
Do you know how many Model 3s and Model Y they're delivering at the moment?
Well, I think they were using it for Model Y. But the thing about Model Y is that they had everything. So everything was already built. So whatever number it is, which is probably, I would think, in the millions, they have already been producing them at Fremont, that they have been producing them in Germany, and they have been producing them in Shanghai. In this one is the very first one, and they're only going to produce them in one single factory. So I don't know. I am skeptic about it.
Yeah. Well, it's 1.8 million Y and 3 vehicles per year.
From Texas.
And 750,000 are from the factory in China.
So there you go. So I think that number sounds really optimistic. Unless they start using some of the other factories, or unless this number is not only for America. If they are, saying, okay, this is going to be worldwide, that'll be interesting. I don't know if they're going to start delivering Cybertrucks worldwide. My understanding is they're going to start with America. Maybe wrong. But interesting nonetheless. There it is. The economy will...
I think it's possible. I do think it's possible, but yeah, it is a bit of a stretch.
It is a bit of a stretch. I mean, again, going back to all the things that sometimes Elon Musk says, that do you want me to go back to the Roadster? All right. The economy will be in doldrums for the next 12 months, and many companies will go bankrupt. This is 100% true. But Tesla will be
Yep.
positioned for the long run, and I do believe that that one is true
I do believe that as well.
as well. This is interesting because Elon Musk has this thing that only he's one of the very few people that have in this space. Most companies are reactive. When something comes around, they react to it and then they try to like do these adjustments and then they go with the flow of whatever is happening in the market. Tesla doesn't do that. And I think that's why they are so successful in what they do. They actually see a plan to 5, 10 or 15 or 20 years completely disregarding the current market. Because if they would take the current market into consideration, they would have to make significant changes. And that's one of the, stubborn things that Elon Musk does all the time. And it has played very well for him up until now. There's been some cracks some chinks in the armor lately. It reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Mr. Burns says, "Oh, I'm starting to believe that Homer is not the genius political that we all believed he was." Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I do think that like they've got huge profit margins. They don't have much debt. They have lots of factories. The only problem is that if there is a financial downturn of them having too much inventory on hand, and that could be a problem. But I think that they can deal with that. And they're also looking ahead. Musk was always talking about the financial problems, and he was very aware of it a long time ahead before it was really mentioned a lot of the news. So yeah, I'm really excited that they are so forward looking, and so many companies are very short term focused.
Yes.
And I like that there is actually a company that's bucking that trend. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the main thing is that a lot of companies are afraid of their shareholders. This is something that is not very discussed openly, but the thing is this: if you are whatever you are, I don't know, a toy maker, and you have a bad product, you will lose millions. But if your shares tank, you will lose billions. So it's way more important to keep your shareholders happy than to make a good product. That is 100%. But Elon Musk have managed something that is incredibly difficult, which is people are investing in him, not on his company. So if Elon Musk says it's red, everyone says, oh, well, it's got to be red then. Even if you are looking at it blue. And sometimes, most of the time, said, oh my God, it was red. But yeah. I don't know for how long he can keep that. And anyway, he's been doing it, and he is a smarter person than both of us, I'm guessing, Kieran. Not to offend you. But I'm guessing he's a smarter person than both of us, so there you go.
He's definitely got some good business acumen, and just when he talks about rockets and stuff, I'm just like, oh wow, like that. Yeah, very, very impressive.
Very impressive.
But he's also a bit crazy too. So I don't know. Do you have to be crazy to be smart?
Yes, absolutely. No, you don't have to be crazy to be smart, but you have to be crazy to follow up. You cannot be the best at something in the world without having a screw loose, because what you need to give up to reach that level is not something that a lot of people are happy giving up. So if you want to be the best chef in the world, you will need to make some huge sacrifices personally that 99.9% of the people are not happy making. And I think that's exactly what's happening with Elon Musk.
Yeah. So good analysis, definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, the Model Y will be
the other one there, right? Is the reading there? Is also the new drive unit that they've been talking about before? No rare earth elements. Less silicon.
Ahead. You're skipping ahead. Bad Kieran, put your hand. You're getting a bit excited because the third one is very
I want to talk about that one.
Okay, yes, we'll talk about it. We've been almost an hour now.
I'll let you run this then. It's your article.
Well, no. I think the third one is very interesting. The Model Y will be the #1 selling car on Earth this year. Big claim.
Yeah,
I think he's right.
Old news.
Well, no, it's not old news because the #1 best-selling car in the world would be electrical, Kieran.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's been outselling Corollas in Australia already. It's
Well,
kind of,
outselling over certain quarters and the fact that there's not that many Corollas coming in. There's many ifs and buts in Australia
and
of
that's
why that is
Australia,
happening.
but
Yes,
but in the world it makes sense because they are just smashing
correct.
all of the other legacy car makers. So yeah,
And
I don't know.
yeah, no, but it has massive implications about adoption. So
It
about
does.
adoption, about infrastructure, and about a lot of things that we cannot just go glance past and say, "Oh, sure, whatever." It's like, no. If the
I don't
best-selling
know.
car in the world is an
Yeah, it is.
electrical
It's going
car,
to be pretty amazing when it happens. I think for me, it's just like I'm so in this space, and I'm so blinded by the fact that I just keep looking at this news, but not everybody that's watching probably,
no, but
sees it the same way I
and
do, right?
again, the implications of this for the world that we're living would be absolutely massive because they said 2022. They were calling it for EVs. They were calling it the iPhone year. So.
Yeah.
Uh, um, Smartphones were around before 2007, which was the year that the iPhone was released. There were other companies that were making smartphones that had like internet connectivity and GPS and all of these things. But it was not until 2007 that iPhone released what is objectively a worse product than what was outside. That it actually came with mass adoption, even when there was no Bluetooth and there was no video recording that all other phones had. So anyway, that's a completely different point. But the fact is that when they came and they released that, everyone started buying smartphones. And a lot of people that said, I don't need a smartphone, I don't need a mobile phone. Eventually, 1 year or 2 years later, everyone was carrying, an iPhone in the pocket.
Yeah. And now it's just now everyone has them. There's nobody really buys
I mean,
anything
I'm
else.
sure that if you look up, you'll find someone that doesn't, but most people have
I'm sure
become
there is, yeah.
dependent on them, and it's just part of regular life. And it happened incredibly quick. Up until 10 years ago, smartphones were not as profuse. In the last 5 to 7 years, it has come to the fact that you can buy a smartphone for under $100, and you can buy a SIM card for literally $20 a year, and you would be off to the races. So, is that what we're gonna see if the Model Y is the number one selling car? Is that, in 5 to 7 years, it's gonna be all electrical, massive chargers everywhere, everyone is gonna have a charger in their house, and everyone is gonna be driving an electric car? Do you think that will open the door, if this is true, the Model Y?
Yeah, well, I've said this before a lot when talking to people, is that the transition from horse and cart to petrol car, when it happened very quickly in a very short period of time. And I do find that I think that we're going to see the same thing with electric cars. Everyone's going to recognize the cost savings. Everybody's going to recognize all the other benefits of it. And it is going to be a very quick change. The problem is that there's still a lot of petrol cars that are there that people are going to use for a long time. Like when you buy a new car now, it's still going to hopefully last you 5-10 years. So there is going to be a long tail, but when it can crack the new sale market and be the most top selling car, that's massive. Yeah.
Here's the thing, and this is something that I don't see a lot of people talking about. It's incredibly easy. Well, way easier to open a fast charger or a supercharger than to open a petrol station. A petrol station is incredibly difficult. So if this happens, everyone and their uncle can put a fast charger in their house, even if it's just like, like a 24-volt one or whatever, you would be able to do it very, very easily. Like, you can actually go and buy one for what, $1,000, $2,000 installed, and you could actually go and sell that, and you're off to the races. So people would be able to go and fast charge anywhere, everywhere. As long as this starts happening, Tesla could actually come up with all of these fast charging things. As long as the adoption is there, people would go and invest let's say $300,000 in getting a fast charger in the middle of nowhere, a supercharger in the middle of nowhere, instead of spending $4 million in a petrol station.
Yeah, like just thinking about the capital work requiring to dig a big hole in the ground to put a tank in there to make sure that it's safe,
and the fact that you need constant resupplying, you need all of these things. Well, this one you just need, well, of course, and I'm oversimplifying, but you just need power, and you can find power in lots of places.
Yeah, the problem is though it does require, in order to get a fast charger, it does require a lot of capital. So you still need to get a grid connection, and at the higher speeds, you do need to spend a lot of money to get a transformer and a cabinet, and
Yeah,
there's a lot of electronics involved. And then your margins are pretty low. Like the amount of money that you can make on a charger, you're not really going to make that money back. And so I definitely think the whole petrol station model works because they have a store where you go to buy it, and they make money from selling you like all the snack foods and all the coffee and those sorts of things marked up higher than it, because they're open all the time and that sort of convenience stuff. Whereas there at charge stations at the moment, there's none of that. There's
doesn't mean
just,
that.
you go to the charge station, plug in, you use your app, or with Tesla, it just charges your card. Um,
But that is something that can be
so
in the. So I haven't been to the
yeah, I think that's going to happen in the future.
supercharger. The one. What is it? Mount Barker between Adelaide and Melbourne. Have you been to that one? Is
Hmm.
it just this thing in the middle of nowhere? Because in Tail and Bend there is actually like this line of superchargers. There's a huge amount of them, and there is a convenience store in it. And I went and I charged there, and then I went into the convenience store and I
Yeah,
purchased an ice cream with the boys, and I did all of these things. So I think that would still be very much exactly the same if you had a supercharger, because you're gonna take a little bit longer as well.
yeah.
If you're gonna
But
full
but the
charge a car,
petrol station don't own that supercharger. It's sort of an arrangement where Tesla, like in Tailem Bend, the example you brought up, the superchargers that are installed and all the cost of that is Tesla, and then the petrol station that's already there is getting all this extra revenue from anyone that drives an EV.
but let's say that you are the Peregrine Corporation that owns all the OTRs and a bunch of different things, and you need to spend $4 to $6 million, depending on the size and where you are, or even more than that, to do, and then all of the resupply and the people that you need and all of the stuff, or yes, your margins will be smaller for sure, but also the upkeep and a bunch of the things that, and even investment, and you still get that convenience store there, because any way that you slice it, you're still going to spend 20 to 45 minutes charging your car. So you need something to
Hmm.
do. And yes, of course, you can go and watch an episode of The Mandalorian in your car. Yes, but if there's an ice cream and a cafe and all of these things, then you plan around it. And I think
Yeah.
that's going to be starting the model we're going to start seeing, especially if the Model Y is the number one selling car on Earth this year. Anyway,
Yes. Definitely.
so that's why I think it's so exciting. Even if we already know this or it was already there, but anyway, Tesla may
Yeah.
reconsider its. Okay, go on.
I guess I got to talk about that. These sorts of things are already happening in Europe. Like Australia, we're already behind, but in Europe, there are massive petrol stations with lots of chargers, and they are doing some amazing things with having like a store and things like that. So yeah, if you're looking at what the future for Australia holds, definitely look to Europe.
Yeah, and especially Australia is a little bit different to Europe and even some places in America, because the distances are quite large. Like even now, so a little bit. I want to go to Perth for my birthday, which is at the end of June. And if I had the option to drive, I would drive there. Like I would drive to Melbourne, but there's no way to make it there in under 2 or 3 days because there's no supercharger in the middle, and that is a big one. So if a time comes where you can actually uh, go to wherever you want, and there's like an array of superchargers. Let's say from here to Melbourne, there's 20 or 30 or 40 superchargers, which is probably the amount of petrol stations that there are around. That
Yeah.
would be, that much more significant than in Europe, because in Europe, essentially, you can travel from one country to another in under an hour,
Mm.
which is a big one. So here, Perth is literally the capital city that is the most isolated in the world. So, like the furthest away from any other capital cities. That's a fact. Look it up.
Yeah, I think that could change this year. There are a lot of announcements around charges
Hmm.
that are opening up in Australia. So being able to drive under a day from Adelaide to Perth could happen this year.
Yeah, there you go. Tesla may reconsider its long stance against traditional advertising. We'll try out a little advertising and see how it goes. We already talked
Yeah,
about
we
it.
spoke about that.
Tesla plans to produce a new kind of drive unit. Here you go. Okay.
Oh yeah. I'm really excited about this.
Which
I've
Musk
heard
said will require
mentioning.
less silicon carbide than prior drivetrains. This is interesting. And no rare I don't know. No rare earth elements. Tesla will also switch to a new low voltage architecture in its cars, which should require less copper. And there's so much. And Jesus, we've been over an hour, Kieran, and this one is such a juicy one because everything here needs discussion. All right, take it away.
To kind of summarize that, this is really exciting that they can do this. I've been looking at it for a while. There's been chats about it. There've been rumors about how this is going to happen, but yeah, being able to have less silicon. I'm not so sure about the silicon carbide. Don't have a full understanding of how that's used in drivetrains, but the rare earth elements is going to be huge. One of the rare earth elements, I think, is neodymium, which is used for magnets.
Yes.
And the magnets in electric engine, like electric motors, are fixed magnets. And in order for them to have magnets that are not using rare earth, is going to be crazy if they can pull it off.
It would have to be
Yeah, I don't know how.
electrical. It will have to be electrical electromagnets instead of using neodymium. But
But is that efficient?
I don't know. Well, you are the engineer, not me. The only thing I know about neodymium is that it is incredibly brittle, like stupidly brittle. So I don't know. I don't even know how they use neodymium in the drivetrain in general.
The funny thing about some rare earth elements as well is that some of them are not that rare. Some of them are actually quite abundant. It's just that when they were first found, they were called rare earth elements.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. All of that is very interesting. The silicon carbide and the rare earth elements. For me, the most important one is the copper, because copper keeps getting harder and harder and harder to mine, and it's incredibly bad for the environment. It's a heavy metal, and it can be poisonous in large doses. There's all of these things about copper and where they find it and what it does to the countries where they get the copper from, and they use. A lot of people don't understand how much we use copper. We use copper for many other amalgams or alloys, as they are called. So that is a big one. The less copper is actually a really, really, really big one. It would reduce the cost by a lot.
Yeah.
It's similar to... Go on.
Definitely. It's really exciting. I think for me, the bit about this, maybe I should explain it a bit. So in a Tesla, there's the high voltage, which is the main battery, and that goes to the motors, and that's what pushes the car along. So high voltage is just like your petrol tank in your car. And then the low voltage is kind of the same as a normal car. You've got a 12-volt battery in a normal car. In a Tesla, you have either a 12-volt or a 16-volt in some cars. So you have a battery. The new cars also, that they used to have the exact same type of battery that you had in a petrol car, but now they switched over to a lithium battery, which is a lot lighter. And so what this means is that I think there's rumors of it being a 48 volt. So instead of 12 volt, double it. No, not just double it, like as in 48 volts. So it's low voltage, but they're increasing the low voltage, which means that they don't need as much, that the cabling can be lessened, and they can reduce the amount of cabling they can do because they're changing the voltage.
Oh, so that's where the copper comes from. But that's not a huge amount of copper then, if it's just the cabling. Doesn't sound like it's too much. I was getting a little bit overexcited. Yeah, but then I thought it was more like, big chunks of metal in the car. But if it's just the cabling, I mean,
but there's huge amounts of cabling. If you think about all of the runs that you have to do, or to every single door and switch in the car, and sensors and heating and all sorts of, there's so many different things in the car, and there's a massive amount of wires that go through it. So it's also going to reduce weight too, which will increase range. So it's actually there's a lot of metal in those wires, and being able to reduce it.
So what would they use instead of, just because it has so it doesn't need copper because it doesn't need to move that much electricity, just to put it simply. What will they use? Does that mean that they can use a different alloy? They just use less, the wires are smaller.
Yeah, less copper, less wires.
So the wires are thinner, just to put it that way.
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to double check, but I think the problem is I'm feeling like that's not correct, but as you increase the voltage, I think you don't need as much. Um, yeah, as you increase the voltage, you can have higher amounts of amps going through, which means more power for a smaller amount of actual metal in the wires.
Very good. Very engineering answer from you.
Yeah, I wish I had better words of explaining it, but yeah, not
Well, they
today.
are better than mine. So Victor words bad thingy. Boo boo boo. Um, okay. Here's an
Yeah.
somehow I am the one driving the podcast. Victor, podcast good. Listen much.
Yeah.
Okay. J.B. Straubel, former Tesla CTO and current leader of e-waste recycling company Redwood Materials, was voted onto the board as an independent director. I'm guessing that's just office politics thing. Why is this
Yeah,
important?
that's actually quite a good one. So JB Straubel used to be, as it says there, former CTO, and he then founded his own recycling company, which is really good. I think he will be massive to add to the leadership team, and I think that having him back is going to be really important.
Well, I think that sort of kicks it off. There's still much more to read in the articles, and I mean, obviously, it was a big day for Tesla, and we didn't get to do other of the things that happened with other companies, well, besides Toyota. So we're gonna leave the links for all of these ones because one for CNBC and the other one is from the Drive, so you can go and read on them. But I think that was the big chunk of all of this news. And that's what and we'll just touch on this one very quickly before we go, which is the fact that Elon Musk wants Tesla hires cleared by him as he shifts focus away from Twitter. And that is an interesting one because, as you said, he's running away from Twitter. Well, not running away, that's a big word. He's saying goodbye to Twitter and putting someone in charge, which I cannot remember her name at this point, sorry. And he is going back to Tesla, and now he's saying, okay, I'm back. And I'm gonna need to see everyone before they hire them. That's a funky one. I don't know. Is it good or is it bad? That's probably the only take that we can have about this one. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess to me, it's showing that maybe there's concerns about the economy and not wanting to have too many more hires in a period of time where they may not need to grow.
That's not the way it works. The way it works is you have a budget, and then you have a certain amount of people that you can hire, and you have a limit, and you have an amount that you can pay them. You don't run through the CEO every single person. Imagine how many.
This seems like a hiring freeze. That's what it seems like.
It does, but it's not worth it that way. It's not, we're going to stop hiring people. It's everyone that Tesla hires is going to have to go through me. And I'm guessing it's not at a personal level. It's going to be like, we need 50 new engineers for the Shanghai. All right, I'm gonna have to. That seems like a huge amount of work, to be honest, because I'm guessing hiring and firing people would be an everyday thing for how many people Tesla employs. It would be in the
but there's a quote there which is think carefully. So to me, it's sort of like, okay, we're not stopping hiring, but if you have somebody that you really want to hire, I will look at it and approve it. So it's to me like a hiring freeze without actually calling it a hiring freeze.
Fair enough. Okay, I guess a hiring freeze would make people nervous, and they are trying to avoid that, which would make sense. But I don't know, the way they word it, they make it sound like a control freak.
Well, he's a control freak.
He is a control freak, and that's probably why he's successful, at the end of the day. And that was the last one, Kieran. And, okay, let me stop sharing here. All right, so what's your take on all of this stuff, Kieran? Tell me. Talk to me.
Yeah, my take. I guess the big take is that, like just to start with, like Toyota's so far behind, and just from all this stuff from Tesla are now continuing to lead, and they're going to just destroy the competition with. What's that?
Some funky stuff as well. They are leading, but there's also a few funky things going on with Tesla as well, isn't it?
There are some funky things as well. Some funky things that they may pay off, they may not pay off. There's some things I disagree with. There's some good, there's some bad.
Anyway, I think we've said it all. I think it's time to say goodbye until next Wednesday. But I mean, there's lots of stuff, interesting stuff for sure. So we're trying to upload these. Yep, go on. Sorry.
Do you want to pause?
So, Kieran, first of all, thank you so much for all of your amazing information and your knowledge and your know-how.
Yeah, happy
Uh,
to share it. Yeah, it's enjoyable. It's
it,
exciting.
it's exciting. I think that's the word that I would keep here. It's exciting. Things are happening. Things are moving. It's a brand new world, and it's gonna be an interesting one for sure. Uh,
Yeah.
as I was saying, we are recording these episodes on Wednesdays. We're trying to push them out every Wednesday. So subscribe if you haven't. If you want to hear more of this and just us going through the news of what's happening with the EVs in general in Australia, and leave that like, and we'll see you next time. Kieran, goodbye.
See you then. Bye.